These modern systems now are typically cloud-based systems with current technology and can provide real-time data with drill-down capabilities. They recognize that the information that needs to be tracked is required. The information required to be tracked meets the needs of a wide variety of stakeholders who oftentimes have different purposes or uses for the information. Modern systems tend to use the transactional data not just to look at the history or what has happened, but also to be future focused and predictive of what is to come. The analytics of the data has intensified so much that the use of a multi-dimensional chart of accounts is necessary in order to be able to organize the data in a more meaningful way. The use of dimensions allows for greater visibility, deeper analytics, and quicker reporting response times. When you combine the use of dimensions with your simplified chart of accounts, you now have a better way of viewing your data. The top section is what you would have entered into an old ERP system. You record the date, the value of the transaction, and the GL account that it's going to. The bottom section shows how you can add to the power of the transaction with the use of dimensions. It's still the same transaction, but with so much more reporting capabilities by including the various dimensions. Keep in mind, these dimensions can work with any of the GL accounts. You can mix and match as needed. You can include them or not include them, and just add to the functionality of the transaction.
When I first talk to my clients about their financial reporting, we can't have that conversation without talking about stakeholders. And when I talk about stakeholders, these are the constituents that need the financial information from our accounting department. And so when we talk through that, we're able to isolate about 4 different groups of those stakeholders. They're department and program managers, executive management, donors, and financial management. So let's talk about department and program managers. For these groups, they have their own distinct areas that they're managing, reviewing, are responsible and accountable for. So in this area, it's going to be important to use those dimensions to be able to run reports specifically for their departments and their programs. They're also, in this area, they're very cognizant of budgets and actual performance. So budget to actual reporting. And that's on the program and department side. Remember, there's also G&A department holders, right, or department heads. So the facilities or human resource. And they are going to be using some of those same dimensions that Kristina talked about, like locations and employee dimensions, departments. Those are going to be the type of reports that they're going to be using. The second grouping is the executive management. Now think of them as being at the 50,000 height, and they're going to be looking at the entire organization. They'll still want to dice and slice and see some of the performance of the departments and the programs. But they're really going to be focused on the statement of operations, the statement of financial position at the higher level. And then they're going to be looking at the dimensions of class distinctions, which are the restrictions. That's going to be key for them. They are also a group that are forward-looking, and they're managing cash flow. So grants and contract positions is an important report that they will be using. In that type of report, we'll be using the dimensions for projects and customers. The next area is the donors. They're always wanting to monitor and see how their precious dollars are being used in our organizations. So they're looking for statement of operations where they can see the dimensions being sorted by programs and classes, right? And seeing what type of restrictions there are. They're also looking at the statement of functional expenses. The sophisticated ones are looking at what percentage of your dollars are being spent on the programs versus G&A and fundraising. And then the last segment is financial management. And that's our group. And of course, we want all of the above plus more. So in our group, we're looking also at keeping track of the financial health of the organization. We're looking at items like net assets, the restrictions. Those are the type of dimensions that we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at the cash and liquidity reports. These are used not only for operations and management, but also for compliance reporting. And then we also have compliance reporting with CFA, which is federal reporting, and Form 990 on the tax side. So I'm going to showcase our first WOW report that goes to the executive and program managers. This would be one that they could use. This is called the Grants and Contract Position Report. And on the left, you'll see my star, which talks about the dimensions that are showcased here. These are listing all of the grants. What's wonderful about this report is you're able to look at not only the status of revenue booked and expenditures, but you also get a viewpoint into the total award amount. And as senior managers and program managers, this is an area that they're watching all the time to make sure they're deploying resources in the right areas, and they're making collections or billing out when needed. These are two very, very important reports that I've produced here today. One is the cash balance report. The other is the liquidity disclosure report. On the cash balance one, I've highlighted there with a star that I've been able to use grouping to group just the U.S. domestic cash balances. And then I can see on this report the balances and the trend of cash for each one of those groupings of cash. And I can keep a daily look on it. I can pull this report and be able to assess where we are at any point in time. The liquidity disclosure report, often people think of it as just a required disclosure in the audited financials. But I've learned to start to use it in the everyday operations at nonprofits. Especially board of directors love to see this often. And what this liquidity disclosure report does is it shows you the liquid assets of the organization. That's that total financial asset line here on this example, the 44 million. This example is in really good shape. But then it looks at it, and it also then it subtracts out any of the restrictions, the donor restricted amounts that we have to be spent on certain activities. And what you're left with is a really clear and good look of what the financial assets are available to fund your other operations, your general operations. So in this situation, you see the 44 million available, you see 4 million that's restricted, and then you have 39 million. This is a great example of how you can monitor the liquidity of your organization. What I have used here, and you'll see in kind of the cash and cash equivalents, is I've used those grouping and sorting abilities to create this report. And by the way, it's really wonderful to be able to click a button and have this report instead of creating this separately in Excel into your spreadsheets for those auditors.
All right, here we go. Here's an example of a dashboard that was built for a CFO of an organization. This is what we like to call a role-based dashboard. And it not only has some of the key reports that Charlene was covering earlier, but also some graphs and some performance cards that capture the key metrics for the organization. You can see the budget to actual report there in the middle of the screen, and it's surrounded by some graphs that the user can use to get a quick idea of trends that are happening within the organization, as well as those performance cards at the top, which just kind of make key KPIs jump out at the user, makes them right there readily available. You can see at the top there the prompts that also allow you to sort and filter your dashboards by whatever prompts you choose, such as a date or a particular area, such as a program, a grant, a location, whatever it is you need. When you enter in those filters at the top there, you actually will be then filtering all of the items on the dashboard by what you're putting into the filtering at the top. So as Charlene pointed out earlier, filtering and sorting is a key component of using the dimensions, and so this is just one more enhanced way of being able to filter and sort the reports even further on a dashboard.